The dog that wasn't supposed to exist. Late autumn, 2022. The clock was nearing 11 p.m. when Ethan Cole was on his way to his modest home in Ravenwood. His shift as a security guard at the industrial warehouse had been uneventful, as usual, and the lonely, eerie drive along the old Redwood Highway was the price he paid for living in a quiet place far from the city's hustle and bustle. A flicker of movement near the dense pine tree fence caught his eye. He pulled over his old pickup truck. He was used to seeing raccoons or skunks, but the shape illuminated by his headlights was different. It was a dog. It wasn't an ordinary stray. It was a Belgian Malinois, but unhealthily thin, its ribs slightly visible beneath its mud-caked coat. In its eyes, which reflected the headlights, there was none of the usual fear of a lost animal, but a look of alertness and caution, as if it was studying Ethan intently. The dog didn't run as Ethan approached. He moved slowly, speaking in a low, calm voice. "It's okay, buddy. Everything's okay." When Ethan reached out his hand, the dog stepped forward instead of retreating. It didn't lick his hand or wag its tail. Instead, it lifted its front paw and placed it gently on Ethan's palm. It was a heavy touch, full of pent-up strength, more like a formal greeting than play. When Ethan lifted him into the passenger seat, he noticed something directly behind its left ear. It wasn't the usual identification microchip, the size of a grain of rice. It was a solid bulge the size of a fingernail, with a fine scar around it, as if it had been implanted recently. It was strange, but Ethan assumed it might be some advanced type of chip from a fancy veterinary clinic. He named him Shadow and brought him home. He gave him his old dog's food and water and wrapped a blanket for him on the kitchen floor. Less than an hour had passed when the doorbell rang. When he opened the door, he found three men standing on his doorstep. They weren't in full official uniforms, but wore matching dark tactical gear, without any badges or names. They carried themselves with a military bearing, their postures rigid, their gazes direct and sharp. "Good evening, sir. We're from the internal security team for the industrial zone. Did you pick up an animal on the highway tonight?" asked the tallest one, his voice flat and formal. Ethan froze. He didn't say dog, he said animal. And Shadow, who should have been asleep in the kitchen, was standing directly behind the door, slightly crouched forward, a low, deep growl emanating from his throat that Ethan had never heard from him before. It wasn't a growl of fear, but a warning. That was the moment he understood. They weren't from the police, and they hadn't said anything about a lost dog. They were looking for him specifically, the scar behind his ear, the way he observed everything.